One of my favorite scenes in cinematic history is in Sleeping Beauty. The three fairies wanted to bake Aurora a cake for her birthday, but none of them knew exactly how. So they buy all the right ingredients and they follow directions and they try and they try and they try, and the cake ends in total disaster. The reason why this is one of my favorite scenes is, well, because it's a perfect depiction of what leadership can oftentimes feel like. Well, let me provide a comparison. So the fairies wanted to bake a cake, just like how we want to be leaders. The fairies follow the directions, just like how we try to become movie, TV, or textbook definitions of a leader. And the fairies had all the right ingredients, just like how we can have all the right personality traits and experiences to become successful leaders. And the cake ended in disaster, just like how our attempts at leadership aren't as successful as we wish. Adults always say that young people will change the world, that we're destined for excellence. But how can we possibly achieve the excellence of leadership if we do not have primary examples or a true, exact definition of leadership? Hey, my name is Jillian George. I'm a sophomore at Frisco High School, and today I'm going to be talking about the misconception of leadership. When I was in first grade, I was always fond of being the line leader. Well, for obvious reasons, it was because I was number one. I felt so beautiful and I felt so important to be standing and, well, mostly privileged to be standing in front of a line. And I felt amazing to have the amazing opportunity to lead my class from place to place. And I felt beautiful as a kid to have power in a society where it told me that I didn't have any power. It felt beautiful to feel important in a society that told me that kids weren't important. And it felt beautiful to have control in a society that told me that kids couldn't be in control. And I grew up with this dangerous misconception that in order to be a leader, we had to be controlling, that we had to be dominant, that we always had to be in control, and that we always had to be number one. And this is not true. A misconception is something that is, or thinking that is developed from faulty teaching, thinking, or understanding. The misconception of leadership is that leaders are supposed to be dominant and controlling, that leaders are always supposed to be number one in their groups and that they are the most important. And in all complete honesty, leaders should be kind, altruistic. They're supposed to be patient and they're supposed to be caring. And this misconception of leadership is dire when looking at modern day leaders. So, taking this new knowledge that I learned about leadership, I try to look back in my life and figure out where my first contact with leadership started. And well, it was all back in elementary school. In elementary school, leadership was presented to us on a beautiful silver platter. We had two amazing options. We could either be line leaders or we could be cabooses. So line leaders are the people that are assigned to be in front of the line, and they take people from place to place and classroom to classroom. And cabooses, with all of their amazing glory and power, were responsible for turning off the lights. That's it, to stand in the back of the line and turn off the lights. Now, if you were anything like me, when I was a kid, I thought that being the caboose was the worst job in the whole entire world. Like, who in their right mind would like to stand behind everyone, be last, and be responsible for just one thing, to turn off the lights? And I thought that, in all honesty, cabooses were lame. But that was before I saw a train. Believe it or not, cabooses are pretty cool. Cabooses have lots of responsibilities. Number one being that they shelter the crew who work on the train. They're also responsible for overheated axles and load shifting and so many more important details of what makes a train move. Now, Jillian, you may be asking, how does this apply to leadership? Well, as a caboose of a train, you are responsible for the people in front of you. A caboose is one of the main important parts of the train was because it looks at everything in front of them. If you are behind everyone in front of you, you get to see everyone and you get to experience and help and understand the welfare of others. You get to build habits of helping others and putting others before your own. Because you can't really do those things if you're standing in the front of the line, because society has taught us that being leaders mean that we have to be number one, that we always have to be in front, and that we always have to be controlling. And there's no way that we can develop the leadership traits of being patient and kind and putting others before ourselves if we are so focused on building ourselves upwards, because we miss the amazing opportunity to help others up and to help others build leadership and personality and character traits. So, what exactly is a leader? Well, to be honest, nobody knows. Everyone has this idea, society has taught us that leaders always have to be number one. That to be a leader, you have to be the fastest one on the team, the smartest person in class, and so on, but that's not true. A leader isn't always the smartest person in class. A leader always doesn't get the highest test scores. A leader doesn't always throw the ball the farthest. The leader doesn't always lift the most weight. And leadership is all about inside qualities. And as I like to say, leadership starts with the heart. Everyone's journey through leadership is different. Some it may start at a young age, and others it may take years. And some people it starts with a life-changing experience. But everyone's leadership journey starts with one decision. And that decision is to go deeper into what you're already into. No matter if your passion is football or basketball or baseball, if it's academics, if it's speaking, if it's playing your instrument, if it's anything, the journey to leadership is when you start to devote time and go deeper into what you're already into. The next step into your journey of leadership is the decisions to help others. Now, there are two different types of leadership. There is traditional leadership and there is servant leadership. So first, traditional leadership is when the leader believes that they are indeed number one, that they are so extravagant and so much important than the people below them. They don't acknowledge the needs of other people because they are so focused on their own. They are so focused on them that they forget about the people below them. Now, on the other hand, servant leaders always are focused on the people. They are always focused on helping others attain their goals, creating their goals. They're helping on others' people succeed. And we should try to become like servant leaders. Now, executing leadership isn't always easy. Just like the fairies baking the cake, it's going to take a lot of time and devotion and dedication, and it's going to take a lot of experience. And just like the cake, it may end in disaster, and that's okay, because it's going to take practice and it's going to take time, and everyone's journey, like I said earlier, is different. So I've created about 5 simple ways you can execute leadership, and it's named after the Backstreet Boys, the 5 bye-bye-byes. Okay, so the first one is by simply being yourself. And you're like, well, duh, that seems pretty easy, but in all actuality, sometimes when we try to become leaders, we try to present ourselves as perfect and present ourselves as people that we aren't. But it's important to always remember why you're deciding to go into leadership. It's always important to remember the things that make you you and present them to the people that you are trying to lead. The second one is by simply leading by example. Leading by example is determined by our morality. So, for example, it's the end of the football game and there's trash all over the stadium. And you decide to start picking up trash. Other people may look at you and be like, wow, they're executing leadership and decide to help you and to help pick up trash. And congratulations, you've led by example. It's something as easy as that. The third one is sort of like the second, and that is by being kind. Kindness, unfortunately, just like COVID-19, is a disease of its own. It spreads from person to person, and leaders should be the people to initiate this kindness. For example, if you see somebody who is sad, try to cheer them up, try to put a smile on their face, because that person may make somebody else happy and may spread kindness to that person and that person to another person, and so on and so on, and suddenly everyone's happy and kindness is spreading. The fourth one is by setting goals for yourself and high expectations. The reason why this one is always so important is because we go into leadership and it can be scary. And if you create goals, like let's say where I want to be in 1 year, what do I want to do for my team? How do I want us to look? How do I want us to feel? It's important to create those high expectations and those goals. But it's also important to set achievable goals and nothing too high where you'll break yourself down about it. And the fifth one is by becoming friends with people who inspire you and people that are better than you. And I know that the pride of life is something, and that sometimes it's hard to acknowledge that somebody may be better than us, but it's so important, because if we can become friends with people who inspire us, who are better than us, then we will actually learn something. If we look at somebody and we take little things that they do, personality traits, character traits, leadership traits, and pull that from them and apply it to ourselves, we will become our best selves and you will become an excellent leader. There are several factors in the misconception of leadership. Number one is that there are only one way to lead, which isn't true because there's so many. Like I said earlier, there's two basic ones, traditional and servant leadership. But in every way that we do lead, we need to make sure that we are always focused on serving others. The second one is that leaders are supposed to act a certain way, which that isn't true because we're all different and we all have different personality traits and different experiences, and it's important to acknowledge that. Number three is that a leader is always number one, and that's not true because leaders should be always focused on building others up. And if you're so focused on building yourself up and making sure that you are always number one, you're gonna miss a beautiful opportunity to help others. And number four is that you are more important, which isn't true. Because sometimes when you step in a leadership role, you're not gonna feel important. And sometimes you may not even wanna feel important because when you look at what you've done for your team, once you see how people have grown and all of the amazing things that you and your team have accomplished, then you'll see why that leaders aren't necessarily more important. The world is in desperate need of leaders. And if we continue to tell children that leadership is standing in front of a line and being dominant and controlling, then that is how they will continue to act and how they will continue to lead until somebody tells them otherwise. The misconception of leadership starts when non-leadership values are placed in leadership positions. So how we fix this is by simply asking ourselves every single day, how are we executing leadership? Are we being kind to others? Do you practice becoming your better self? Are you helping others achieve their goals? And just simple things like that. And take a look inside of yourself and figure out what you want to put into the world. And as scary and as daunting as leadership sounds, break it down. Figure out what you want to put into the world and devote time to it. And don't be afraid to get out there. Don't be afraid to put all of your inspirations, your passions, and your goals out into the world, because you'll inspire people and you'll inspire other leaders. The world is in desperate need of leaders, and I can't wait for the amazing world we're going to create.